Hey, this is Carlo with Quinn the Eskimo. I want to take a moment to kind of go over how these contour extensions are actually set up. In these contour extensions, there are three main components. There are the left side of the keywork, designated as side A, which contains all the touch pieces, and side B, which interacts. Sort of bridges the gap between the extension tube and side A. And each one consists of two rings. The rings clamp together on the body by using these two halves right here. They fit around each side, and as you can see, there is this arm and a peg. The arm fits over the peg like this, clamps, and uses the, gotta turn it around there. Uses this screw to tighten against the body. And this is actually a very rigid connection when it's fully tightened. This particular one is ring B1. The rings are noted as the topmost being the first one, so this would be again B1 and go right here. This being B2 on the other side, A1 and A2, because this is again the top and the bottom. You were to hold this instrument upright as though you were actually playing it. Okay, so when you're installing these rings, the first thing you want to do is find the ring, find the side of the ring that has this notch cut into it, like this, because that's gonna determine how exactly this is going to be positioned. So B1 goes right up along this this strap hook right here, and in this case, the part that has a notch is this arm, which is actually the second component you want to attach. First one being the side with the peg, which I'll get into in a second. So this goes straight on there. Then, in this particular case, you go around the back. And hole fits in the peg, and there you go. It's wrapped around the body tube of the instrument, so that's actually fairly secure. Rotate around the other side so we can get the screw in. Start it a little bit. And don't tighten it all the way just yet. Because now we look for that notch we were talking about, and we know we're supposed to install it there along that strap hook. And get it up nice and snug. Now we can tighten it. Oh. There we go. And that is how you attach the ring. That is very secure. So, next step is actually putting on the keys themselves. When I'm doing this, I like to start with the bottom key. It doesn't particularly matter in this instance though. So just sort of slide it right in there. I don't know if you can see. Gotta get my phone over there. There you go. So, yeah, it fits right there in the other post. Tip against it. Let's go back here. Now, do sort of a preliminary tightening of this key. We don't want to tighten it down just yet. So if you look, there's actually a lot of play there in the post, and we're going to address that in a second. First, we're going to put on this top key, same way as the first. And tighten it just enough so that this key fits in there when you take your hand away. So now, this is one of the sort of hurdles with designing a system like this, is that sometimes the position of the ring is just going to be a little bit off. And to get these big adjustments like this, where, you know, again, that's a lot of wiggle room between these two posts, loosen this screw just a little bit. Not all the way, just a little bit, so you can move this ring around. And push it so that these are snug. But in this particular instance, you do actually want a little bit of play, so you're going to want to, I like to back it out just a tiny bit, so you can see that is really a minimal amount of play. And I'll get into that in a second, why you want that in there, because typically you do want these posts snug. For instance, if you were repairing a saxophone, you don't want any play there. But when you're installing these extensions, it is sort of necessary for something I'll get into in a second. Okay. Okay, that's nice and snug. So now we're gonna sort of fine tune it. So I'm gonna start with the top just because it's easier to see. This screw is backed, I don't know, maybe that's a 1/16 of an inch out. Gonna tighten it. There. So now you can see that it's sort of bottomed out, the fact that I'm twisting this screwdriver and the key is turning. You don't want that. That means that there's too much friction on there, so you want it to spin freely on the screw. But you don't want there to be any play. So this is what I was talking about earlier. When I was talking about adding a little bit of play between the posts, the way that these screws are designed is that the snugness, the tightness of the keys actually comes from the screws interacting with the holes, not the keys' snugness on the posts themselves. So that's good. So now we're going to do the second one. There's a little bit too much play in that one, so I'm going to tighten the screw just a little bit, the bottom screw. There, that's a lot less. So now, final step. Oh, let's see if I can do this without messing up my camera. This might be hard to see, but this is much easier to see in person. Here. So what I'm looking at, this is not the key we were just working on, but it's easier to see here. So, see these two screws right here? These are set screws like you'd see on a con, for instance. You can see them right there. So now that the keys, the tension has been set, you know, they move freely with little play. Tighten these set screws. Oop. And look at that, they move. This one's a little snug, so I'm actually gonna go back in with my my screwdriver and loosen this screw just a little bit. There we go. And for doing these minor adjustments, you don't need to undo the set screw. That is really only if you're taking the screw in and out. If you're working in this, you'll be able to feel it's snug. You can still move it a little bit, but it's just designed to hold the screw in place. So there we have it. That's how you assemble the rings. Now we're actually going to put on the tube itself. Let me zoom out a little bit. There you go. Okay. So the tube, like the rings themselves, also has a set of notches. The only one you really want to pay attention to is this round notch right here. This wider one is not as important. You only need that one place of contact. That notch is meant to fit in with this post right here. So to do this, open the keys. Open these keys as far as they'll go. Otherwise, they will sort of bump into these and as you're putting it on and sort of mess things up. Slide it on. And this should feel a little snug. It shouldn't be like a saxophone neck because the point isn't that... With a saxophone neck, you kind of have to keep taking it on and off. With this, it can just stay on the instrument, and most contra cases can allow for that. Most contra cases, you can have this extension tube on without, and still be able to use your case. You know, still be able to close the lid and all that. So that, you know, is, like I said, right there on that post. And, mess with the keys. Before I send these out, I do my best to send these out pre-adjusted. There's no guarantee, of course, that you know, something might not happen in shipping, or you know, there might be a discrepancy in the manufacturing between instrument to instrument. So there's always a possibility that this will need some tweaking. If that's the case, if these keys do not close exactly at the same time, this screw will allow you to adjust for any... let me... So I can get this right. Adjusting this screw right here will allow you to adjust the key heights right here. So let's actually show that. Tighten it all the way down. You can see there's a big gap on C, or C sharp. There you go. Because what's happening there is that as you would put this screw down, this screw closes sooner than this one. So now we're going to release it. Oh, there we go. Back it all the way out. Now, this one's actually harder to see. It's easier to feel. Yeah, there you go. You can feel there's just a little bit of discrepancy there. Yeah, you can see it close a little bit when you tap it. So if you have a leak light, that is the best way to check for that leak. If not, you can find a feel gauge somewhere, or those are sort of the recommended ways of doing it. I don't necessarily recommend just tapping on it like I am, but yes, my tools are over there, and I am over here. Yeah. Yes. So let's go over really quickly about where these rings were actually placed. So, went over where B1 is placed. Right. Gonna make sure that notch is at the top, is right below this top strap ring. And going down, here we have B2, we have the exact opposite. You want that notch to be just above this bottom strap ring. And here we have A1, which goes just beneath this this cluster of table keys, their linkages. It's around, if my camera will focus. See, this guiding post here. See this guidepost right here. This is what A1 is meant to clamp onto, this notch. Which, a good way to find this post is if you look at these sort of system where all these table keys connect, they sort of point at it. It's this first post that is sort of in line with these. So I do wanted to go in a little more depth about how you would install the rings for side A, because they can be a little finicky. So here, first things first, you want to start with the side, again with the peg. So for this, you put it down on the body. Now, this needs to go beneath this key right here. So what you do, sort of lift it up a little bit and push the ring through underneath, again, this key. And once again, you can sort of mark your position by looking out for these cluster of arms right here. So now we come around. This slides up a little bit so that you can get past these this spring hook right here. Slide around again. And this is the post you're going to be clamping onto. So here we go. Grab the other side now. Now that it's sort of basically in line. This, if you can see what I'm doing, sort of goes underneath these cluster of keys right here and hooks onto that peg, just as we've seen before. Sort of clamp it shut like that. And now it's secure. It is more or less where we need to be. We're gonna secure it by just putting it in there, putting the screw in there. Now we can tighten it a little bit. Again, not all the way just yet. That's basically tight, because now, again, we're going to push it that way a little bit. Slide it up. Ooh, needs to be a little looser. There we go. Just really make sure that, once again, this notch is right up against that post. And if that doesn't match, just like we saw earlier, you can sort of undo this this screw a little bit and move this ring around until it does. Although ideally, these are all made the same. They should match if the instruments are the same. So now we flip it around so we can access side A2. In other words, the bottom. So this one, the peg, the notch is actually on the side, same side as the peg. So we're going to want to find, again, this key, same key as before. And I believe the notch for this one should face towards the top of the instrument. So in this case, it's actually on the bottom because we flipped the instrument around. So put this on the side. And for this, it can be a little tight because the post ends, the key ends right there. Sorry. So it has a little more leverage. So it does help to get something like a screwdriver. Stick it in there just a little bit. Bend up. And push it through. And now we can remove the screwdriver. It's under this sort of that little hump. So there we go. There we are. So this one, the post that you need to hook it onto, you look at this key cup right here. Here's the thumb rest. This key cup, the post right exactly above it and to the left. That's the one you want to hook it onto. Now, same as the others. Take the hole, place it over the peg. If I can get it. There we go. Oh, if I can show it. There we go. Now, same thing. Screw in. And tighten. Oh! Tightening at a really weird angle, trying to get this in the frame. So forgive me. So it's a little out of, I don't know if you can see, but it is a little off of the post. So I did loosen it a little bit. Slide it. Sort of wiggle it down. So now, if you can see, it's exactly where it should be on that post. And now we can tighten it. There you go. And yeah, the attachment of these keys is exactly the same as I've demonstrated here, where again you sort of put them in the right place, make sure they fit well on their posts. Again, it doesn't need to be, the posts don't need to be completely tight. What is important is the screws, and that you get those screws tightened down as they should be. But other than that, that should be all of the setup. You'll see here, this is this screw right here is dictates how high these keys sit on the thumb rest. It's mainly a comfort thing, personal preference thing. Yeah, that is something you're just gonna have to mess around with, whatever works for you. Yeah, that should cover just about everything there is to install one of these. I hope you found this video useful, and you are now enjoying your lovely new Contra extension.